When you choose silence instead of begging, the first thing that hits her is pure shock. She didn't expect it. In her mind, she thought you'd be chasing her, calling her, sending long paragraphs, trying to fix things or win her back. That's what most men do when they feel a woman pulling away. But you didn't. You stayed quiet. And that silence is louder than any words you could have spoken. It unsettles her because it challenges the narrative she built in her head, the one where she's in full control, and you're the one left scrambling for her attention. At first, she might dismiss it, thinking he's just playing a game, he'll come around, but as the hours turn to days and the days stretch into weeks, that expectation starts to fade, and what replaces it is confusion. She replays the last conversations in her mind, wondering where she lost her grip. That shock isn't just about your silence, it's about the sudden shift in her perceived power. She thought you needed her validation to feel secure, but your calm detachment shows her that you never did. This moment is powerful because it forces her to look at you in a way she hasn't before. Instead of seeing a man desperate for her presence, she's confronted with a man who values himself enough to walk away without a fight. And that realization cuts deep. It's not just about missing you, it's about realizing that she's no longer the center of your world, that her words or her actions don't sway you the way they used to. Her silence becomes a mirror for her to see the reality she didn't want to acknowledge, that she overplayed her hand, that she assumed you'd always be available, and that assumption was wrong. This shock isn't about anger or resentment. It's about the uncomfortable truth that you've risen above the need for her validation. It's the moment she realizes she underestimated you, and that realization lingers in her mind every single day. And what makes that silence so effective is that it isn't loud or dramatic. It's calm, collected, and steady. It's not about trying to prove a point or make her jealous. It's about choosing your peace over pointless chaos. That quiet confidence speaks volumes, and it's something she can't ignore no matter how hard she tries. This shock of your absence is the first crack in the foundation of her certainty. It's the moment when the story she told herself about you begins to crumble, and the reality of your strength begins to sink in. That's why silence is so powerful. It shifts the balance without a single word spoken, leaving her to sit with the weight of what she's lost. And as that silence stretches on, it only deepens its impact, setting the stage for what comes next, her curiosity turning into obsession. After the initial shock of your silence settles in, something deeper starts to grow inside her. Confusion. She begins to question everything she thought she knew about you and about the situation. In her mind, you were supposed to react a certain way. You were supposed to chase her, plead for her attention, or at least send a message trying to fix things. That's the script she imagined you'd follow. But when you didn't, when you stayed completely silent, that script got torn apart, and now she's left in a place she didn't prepare for. This confusion starts small, almost quietly. She wonders if maybe you're busy or just trying to make her miss you for a bit. But as time passes, that confusion begins to eat at her. She can't understand how you've managed to detach so calmly, how you're not reacting emotionally the way she expected. It makes her question whether she ever had as much power over you as she thought, and that question, that seed of doubt, is where the shift begins. In her mind, she starts revisiting old moments, replaying past conversations, analyzing every detail to figure out what went wrong or why you've chosen silence. She wonders if you've moved on, if there's someone else, or if you've simply stopped caring. And the more she wonders, the more the confusion grows into something heavier, unease. Because the truth is, when someone pulls away and genuinely stays silent, it forces the other person to face themselves. Your silence becomes a test of her own ego. She realizes that maybe she overestimated her hold on you, that maybe she was too sure you'd never walk away. And the longer you maintain your calm distance, the more that realization becomes impossible for her to ignore. She starts to see that the dynamic has changed, that you're not the one needing her anymore. She's the one craving your attention. This confusion is powerful because it makes her feel what she never expected: uncertainty. She doesn't know where she stands with you anymore, and that unsettles her. It makes her curious, anxious, and even a little desperate for some kind of sign from you. But the strength of your silence is that it gives her nothing to hold on to, nothing to interpret, and that void forces her to sit with her own thoughts. And that's where the shift in power happens without you saying a single word. The confusion she feels isn't just about you being quiet, it's about realizing that she no longer has the control she thought she had. That realization alone is enough to make her start questioning her choices, her behavior, and even her feelings. That confusion, slowly turning into longing, is where she begins to feel the true depth of your absence, and where your silence starts to speak louder than any words ever could. What truly unsettles her when you stay silent is the growing realization that you've taken back your power. In the past, she might have been certain that no matter what happened, you'd always be there, always reaching out, always trying to fix things. That belief gave her a sense of control, a quiet confidence that she could pull away or even disrespect you without truly losing you. But when you stopped chasing, when your silence became consistent and unshaken, something inside her shifted. And that shift is what makes her start to feel the weight of her actions. Your silence doesn't just represent a lack of words, it represents a change in you. It shows her that you finally realized your value, that you're no longer playing the same game where you fight for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. That quiet confidence, that decision to step back instead of begging, is what flips the dynamic. Suddenly, she's not the one with the upper hand anymore. She's not the center of your attention, and that absence of validation feels heavier than she expected. At first, she might try to convince herself that she doesn't care. She'll tell herself you're just being stubborn or trying to make a point. But deep down, she knows it's more than that. She knows you've truly reclaimed your energy, and that knowledge stings in a way she didn't anticipate. Because what your silence really communicates, louder than any argument or message, is that you've chosen yourself over her games. And here's the thing, that kind of strength is magnetic. Whether she admits it or not, women notice when a man values himself enough to walk away quietly. They notice when you're strong enough to choose peace over chaos, dignity over desperation. It's not about trying to manipulate her feelings or play some strategy. It's about showing, through your actions, that you understand your worth and you won't compromise it for anyone. This is when the regret begins to build. She realizes that by pushing you away or taking you for granted, she may have lost someone who truly cared but also respected himself. That quiet strength makes her reflect on what she did and, more importantly, on what she might have lost. The beauty of this moment is that you didn't have to raise your voice, send a long message, or prove anything. You simply removed yourself from a situation that no longer served you, and that decision alone speaks volumes. She can feel the difference between silence that comes from weakness and silence that comes from strength. And what you've shown her is the latter. And in that moment, whether she admits it out loud or not, she understands that the power dynamic has shifted. You're no longer the one seeking her approval. You've stepped into your own strength, and now she's the one left feeling the quiet ache of your absence. What truly eats at her during your silence is the uncertainty. Before, she could predict your every move. If there was tension, you'd text. If she pulled away, you'd chase. If she gave you the cold shoulder, you'd try to warm things up. That predictability gave her a sense of control, a sense that no matter what she did, you would always be there, ready to close the gap. But now, with your silence, that safety net is gone, and it leaves her mind racing in ways she never expected. She starts to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, and why you're suddenly so quiet. She replays old conversations in her head, analyzing every word, trying to figure out where things shifted. The same silence that you found peace in becomes noise in her mind. It gnaws at her because uncertainty is powerful, and it creates space for her to feel things she may have been avoiding. What makes the silence even more powerful is that you're not using it to play a game. You're not being quiet out of spite or trying to bait her into a reaction. You've simply chosen to step back to protect your energy, to stop forcing what doesn't feel right, and that authenticity makes the silence hit deeper. She can sense the difference between someone who's just sulking and someone who's genuinely moved on to a calmer place. That difference is what unsettles her because deep down, she knows that your silence isn't temporary, it's a sign of growth. This uncertainty also forces her to confront her own behavior. Maybe she thought you'd always forgive, always overlook the red flags, always be the one to hold the connection together. But when you stopped chasing, it highlighted the reality that relationships aren't sustained by one person doing all the work. Suddenly, she has to ask herself questions she's been avoiding. Did she take you for granted? Did she push too far, assuming you'd never walk away? Those realizations sting and they start to shift how she sees you. And here's the powerful part: by saying nothing, you're saying everything. You're showing her that your life doesn't revolve around her, that you have enough confidence and self respect to detach when you're not valued. That quiet strength creates a new dynamic, one where she's left feeling the loss, the emptiness, and the what ifs, while you focus on moving forward. The irony is that silence, which she may have once seen as weakness, now becomes the thing that commands her attention the most. Every day that passes without a text or a call chips away at the narrative she built in her head, the one where you'd always be there waiting. Now, instead of you wondering about her, she's the one feeling that quiet ache, questioning, regretting, and realizing that maybe, just maybe, she misjudged your worth. And that's the power of true silence. It speaks the truth louder than words ever could. What truly cuts deep is when your silence is paired with visible growth. She expected you to crumble without her, to sit in the same place, waiting for the moment she decided to return. But instead, you chose to rise. You chose to invest in yourself, your mindset, your health, your appearance, your ambitions. And while she may not say it out loud, she sees it. Maybe it's through a subtle change in your energy, the way you carry yourself, or even how others respond to you now. Your silence, paired with visible progress, becomes a mirror that reflects her choices back at her. This growth stings because it reminds her that you never had actually needed her to define you, that her leaving or disrespect didn't break you, it built you. While she may have thought you'd spiral without her, you turned that pain into fuel. And that's something she didn't anticipate. She thought she had time, that the version of you she left behind would always be there. But now, that version of you is gone, replaced by someone stronger, more confident, more grounded. And that quiet transformation forces her to face an uncomfortable truth. She underestimated you. The beauty of this stage is that you're not growing out of spite or to get a reaction. You're growing because you finally understand your worth. You realize that pouring energy into yourself is more powerful than chasing someone who didn't fully value you. And that authenticity in your growth makes it even more magnetic. People around you start to notice. Friends, colleagues, even strangers. There's a shift in your presence that's impossible to ignore. And whether she admits it or not, she feels that shift too. She starts to compare, not because you've asked her to, but because silence leaves room for reflection. She compares the man you were when she left to the man you are now. And she can't help but see the difference. And in that comparison, regret begins to take root. It's not just about missing your presence. It's about realizing that someone else might now experience the version of you she never truly appreciated. And while she's wrestling with that regret, you're at peace. You're no longer seeking closure or validation from her because your silence and your progress have already given you all the closure you need. That detachment, that inner calm is what makes the silence even louder in her world. She realizes she no longer holds the same power over you, and that realization is what keeps her up at night. Because the harsh truth is this: silence combined with growth doesn't just make her miss you, it forces her to see the gap between where she is and where you are. And that's when she finally understands that losing you wasn't just losing a man, it was losing someone who evolved into the very person she always hoped you'd be. What makes your silence truly powerful is when it becomes a sign of genuine peace, not a performance. At first, she might think your silence is just a tactic, that you're ignoring her to get a reaction or to make her feel guilty. But over time, she begins to see the difference. True silence isn't loud or dramatic. It's calm, it's steady. It's the kind of silence that carries no anger, no desperation, no hidden agenda. And that calm is what unsettles her the most because it shows that you've accepted what happened and moved forward without needing to prove anything. This kind of peace is rare, and she feels it deeply because it shows you've let go of the emotional hold she once had on you. She expected tension, arguments, or at least some sign that you were waiting in the background, but instead, you've embraced your own life, your own purpose, and your own happiness without her. That calm silence tells her a truth she never wanted to face. She doesn't have the same influence over you anymore. And when a man no longer reacts, when he no longer needs to defend himself or seek validation, it shifts the entire dynamic. Over time, that peace makes your absence feel even heavier. She starts to realize that your silence isn't about punishment, it's about freedom. You're no longer tied to her choices or her validation to feel whole. And that independence, that ability to stand firmly on your own, is what makes her regret ever underestimating you. She sees that while she may have moved on quickly or tried to fill that void elsewhere, you've built a solid foundation within yourself. And here's the quiet irony: the calmer you are, the more noise it creates in her mind. She replays everything, wondering if she misjudged you, wondering if she lost someone she'll never find again. That peace you found becomes the very thing that makes her restless. It's no longer about wanting control or attention. It becomes about realizing she no longer matters in the way she used to. What she doesn't understand is that true silence doesn't come from wanting her back. It comes from healing, from recognizing that your value was never dependent on her presence. And once you've reached that point, your energy changes completely. You don't need to prove your worth to her or to anyone else because you know your worth. That quiet confidence is what makes your silence so deafening in her world. In the end, it's that genuine detachment, that sense of inner balance that leaves the deepest impact. Because she thought silence was a game. She thought you'd eventually break and reach out. But when your silence isn't about her at all, when it's simply a reflection of your peace, that's when she finally understands she didn't just lose you, she lost access to the man you became without her.